All right.
Sorry.
That for sure, now we're ready. Okay. All right, we're calling to order the meeting of the Highland Park Zoning Board of Appeals on Thursday, May 2nd. And the first order of business we're going to go to is the approval of the minutes from the March 21st.
Could I get
meeting.
a roll call?
Oh, I'm sorry, you're absolutely right. Thank you, Patrick. It's been a while since I've been here. Can we get a roll call for attendance, please?
Yes. Member Chase?
Here.
Member Trushansky?
Here.
Member Beck?
Here.
Member Zaransky?
Here.
Member Cullither?
Here.
Vice Chair Yablon?
Here.
And Chair Bay?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. All right, now we will move on to the approval of the minutes from the March 21st meeting. For the record, I was not at that meeting, but I did watch the recording, including the part where Vice Chair Yablon tried to disenfranchise the rest of the board. Just kidding. But I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Also move.
Member Yablon seconds.
Vice Chair Yablon.
Oh, yeah. Her too.
Okay, all right. That's a motion by Member Cullither and a second by Vice Chair Yablon to approve the minutes of March 21st. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the minutes are approved. All right. Next item on the agenda is business from the public. Is there anyone here to speak on something that is not on the agenda currently? Seeing none, nobody's indicating as such, we will say there is no business from the public. Item number 4 on the agenda, old business. Is there any old business? I don't think so. All right, so we're going to move on to new business. So the first matter of business for this evening will be new business, variation number VAR-2024-00016, property address 1850 Crescent Court. The appellant is Alexander Yulanov. I hope that's close. Okay, I'm okay. All right. All right. Staff, do we have a presentation, please?
Yes. Okay, perfect. Okay, so 1850 Crescent Court, variation 2024-16. The applicant is Calvin Bernstein with, on behalf of the owner, Alexander Yelnov, and the proposal is to exceed the maximum allowable fence height within the required front yard. This property is zoned R4 LFOZ with a minimum lot area of 20,000 square feet. The existing home was built in 2001 according to the Lake County Assessor's Office. So the request is to exceed the maximum allowable fence height of 4 feet by 2 feet to allow a gate 6 feet in height of a distance 20.5 feet within the property's front yard. Here you can see the property. It is well within the R4 zoning district near the lake. Here is an aerial shot of the property. Whoop. One thing I want you to notice is that, so this is city-owned right-of-way here. And then when this road turns, this becomes a private street. This is an ingress-egress easement used for the properties located here. All of these properties have signed off on this proposal because the gate will be going across the Crescent Lane or Crescent Court, approximately right here. Here is a plotted survey showing that ingress-egress easement. I highlighted in orange, and again, the gate will be approximately here across the road. Here are some pictures to kind of give you a better idea of what the area looks like. The picture on the left is from city-owned right-of-way, and then that turn there is where the private easement starts, and the ingress and egress for the rest of those properties begins. The right is just straight down the road, and then this is a picture further down the road, just doing 180, looking back. So here's the proposed work. They're going to propose a gate that is 6 feet in height across the private road. It is within this ingress-egress easement. I'll have you note that also this is a part of the proposal that is within the city-owned right-of-way, which Public Works had comments on, which I will address later. Here is just a mock-up of what the fence proposal could be. 6 feet in height. Again, the allowed fence height for this area would be 4 feet. So, other comments. All these comments have been sent to the applicant and have been pretty well addressed. The public works comments I wanted to just bring up because they are a holistic part of this application, but it's not really before you because the city-owned right-of-way is kind of the territory of public works and is not part of the approval of the ZBA. But their comments were important to this project, and I still wanted to highlight those comments. So most of their comments were about the turnaround, so they could get bigger trucks if going down that like garbage or with snow plows, they had room to turn around and get out because that road will now be kind of blocked by this gate. And police and fire also asked that they have a way to get in and out of the gate so emergency services can get to these properties. The applicant has put on the site plans that they will be installing a Knox box, which is a way for emergency services to get to those properties. They've done pretty much everything that city staff has asked, but again, just kind of highlighting these comments that are a part of the project. Again, public comment. All the neighbors that are affected by this project submitted letters and do approve of this project. And we didn't receive any other public comment on this property. The approval order, just kind of one last thing. It's not typical in the approval order to have something across the ingress egress easements. So Corporation Council drafted some verbiage that kind of holds the city harmless for putting a gate across a private road.
And who is holding the city harmless? Who's signing on the whole harmless agreement? All of the residents?
Oh, it's just, it's within the variation approval order. It's a condition of the approval.
Well, but if there's a hold harmless, it has to put responsibility on someone to actually hold the city harmless, unless I'm wrong.
Oh, it's just, sorry, I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not the best at these.
I would think all the residents in there would have to sign off on it.
We'll wait until.
Just because the homeowner signs off on it doesn't mean the other people.
We can ask the attorney for the applicants when he testifies. I think he might have
I
an
had
answer for us.
our Corporation Council draft it, so they have signed off on this approval order. Just kind of to review and wrap up, and we can get back to questions. This is again to exceed the maximum allowable fence height of 4 feet by 2 feet to allow a gate 6 feet in height of a distance of 20.5 feet within the property's front yard. The board should be using Chapter 173 standards of approval for this application.
All right, a couple bookkeeping matters before we move on. Number one, before anybody testifies, I want to make the announcement about our new check-in policy. Zoning Board of Appeals is instituting a new check-in policy. If you testify, you must provide your information, name, address, and case to receive a follow-up with the case results delivered by mail. You do not need to provide your information to testify, but please know if you do not provide the information, you will not receive a follow-up by mail. Anyone a part of the applicant's team must also check in, and there is, my understanding, there is a check-in sheet on the podium, so anybody who wants to give testimony should check in. We no longer are going to ask you your address, we're just going to ask you your name when you give testimony, is my understanding of our new policy.
Correct.
Okay, that's number one. Number two, relating specifically to this matter, I am actually the first cousin of one of the residents that's affected by this fence, as is another member of the board, ironically, although we are not related. It's a quiz question later. We have conferred with Corporation Counsel, and we're told that we need not recuse ourselves. As a matter of fact, we need not even disclose this, but in the interest of transparency, I wanted to disclose it. So,
Me too.
question about that matter?
No, I have a question for
Oh,
staff.
okay. Yeah. And now we're ready to move on. So, questions?
The concerns raised by Public Works, those would still exist even if it were a 4-foot fence, am I correct?
Yes.
Okay. So, because all we're really dealing with is,
Yes, you're only really dealing with the height of the fence.
right, is because they could by right put in a 4-foot fence.
Correct.
Or gate. Okay.
And since this is a private street, there's no concern about the city snowplows getting down there. That's all up to the homeowners association. So it's-
Yes, that is my understanding. Yes.
You would have the same concern with a 4-foot fence.
That's true.
Yeah,
But,
so-
yeah, and I guess the fence.
Yes,
the fence itself has
city,
already been
the
approved.
city only takes care of the city-owned right-of-way, and they've discussed, so this part is obviously very small, but this is area to push snow into that area while leaving the turnaround open, so trucks can still navigate, get out of that area.
And obviously, we have no concern about other trucks that might need Amazon, UPS, FedEx. That's the residents' problem.
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions right now for staff?
Does the turnaround exist today, or is there?
No, this is, so where the city vehicle is parked is where it would eventually be kind of constructed.
So who would pay for that? The applicants or the city?
I believe this applicant has agreed to
Better be the applicant.
construct it. Yeah, the city isn't going to be paying. They asked that the road be constructed with city standards. But yeah, it's up to the applicant.
So if there was just a 4-foot fence, they would still need a building permit, which would then trigger Public Works to
Yep, yes.
need to modify. Okay.
Any other questions? Yep. Okay. Is there anyone here who would like to speak on behalf of the application? If you would identify yourself for the record, sir.
Sure. Oh, you got me? Okay. Good evening. My name is Cal Bernstein. I'm the attorney for the applicant.
Mr. Bernstein, even though I know you've been here numerous times and probably under perpetual oath, will nevertheless swear you in. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is going to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay, please proceed.
Thank you. This is actually, a unique case before the zoning board. I've been practicing here for many years, both being on the zoning board and since I'm practicing, and I've never seen a case like this before. This is really just a fence case. I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. I mean, part of it's a gate, but it's also a fence that is going to be extending from the gate, and the request is to go from 4 feet to 6 feet. Part of fixing the issues, and I know you don't go by the street because of your regulations, but it's a very narrow street. It's meandering. It's set back fairly far from Prospect. So it's from Prospect, you can't see back there. There's the turn, and then there's another turn before you get to even the location where this fence is going to be erected. And the purpose behind it, whether it's 4 feet or 6 feet, is that it's near the lake, and I really didn't want to put this in our submittals, and I want to be sensitive to the applicant and the neighbors. There's been some issues with the street and issues with people who shouldn't be on the street being on the street. And it's created a lot of curiosity, just the location and how it's tucked way back there. And so there's some security and safety concerns that are leading to this application. The neighborhood, and I'm calling it a neighborhood because it's really 4 homes that are affected. They actually wanted to do a joint application, but as it turns out, because it's not on their property, technically the application had to be in Alex's name. But they're all supportive, they're all involved, and they're all pushing for this request. And they're also pushing for the additional 2 feet because of the issues that have happened on the block over the last year or two and I'll just leave it at that. I really don't want to go on, this is on tape and it's on TV. I really don't want to go into more detail, but that's driving the request. This is a different type of variance request than you normally hear. It's actually section 170.030C are the standards, and there's only 3 standards. There's no hardship standards, there's no reasonable return type of standards. The 3 standards involved, the first is the request variation will contribute to the favorable environment of the city and is suitable and compatible with the character of the neighboring buildings, structures existing or under construction, and the character of the neighborhood in the zoning district. This is tucked so far back, it's not visible from the street. all of the homes that are impacted are joining in this application. So it will create a favorable environment for all of them, because that's the reason why we're proceeding. It'll promote safety, provide protection for the residents. And just tonight, when I drove over there, I found there's actually two properties within 2 blocks that have actually 6-foot gates or slash fences that are in the right of way on a city street. One is 53 Sycamore and the other one's on Hazel. So this is not out of the ordinary for this area to have these type of structures, but this one is clearly distinguishable from the ones that are already existing, because this one's about 150 feet away from Prospect, where the public is generally is where the public would be located. The next is the requested variation will not be detrimental to the harmonious, orderly growth of the city. It's not visible. Nobody from the city is going to see it, except for the 4 residents that are impacted and that are requesting this. And the requested variation will not cause a substantial depreciation in the property values or the taxable values in the neighborhood. And in fact, I think the opposite, it's going to promote that, because it's going to promote the safety of those houses that have had issues recently. So that is, we're here for, there's a lot of curiosity when people drive towards the lake and they come across this Crescent Court, this quaint little private lane. I'm going to call it a lane. It's not even a road. It's very narrow, very difficult. And actually, one of the, oh, you got the picture up. Thank you. One of the benefits from doing this is because it's so difficult to maneuver and it's tight. That bump out that they're going to build in connection with this is going to be very helpful to getting people in and out of this lane, because it's very narrow, and that area is going to actually benefit trucks and other things trying to access this area. So they're very supportive. They wish they were co-applicants, and Alex is here if you have any questions from him, but I'm available for any questions you may have.
As I understand this, Kel, if as you turn off of Crescent Court or into Crescent Court off of Prospect, there's the first part of the street is a public street.
Yes.
And that's obviously got houses on either side, and it's only after you get to the point where it meanders off and just segregates the remaining 4 houses at the end of the street, if you would, there's a delineation there where it becomes a private street.
Yes.
And that's what we're talking about.
Yes, and that's the reason we're limited to 4 feet because it's a front yard. If you could see, you can see it right there. On the other side of, I'm going to call it the street, the lane, you actually see a 6-foot stockade fence. And that's one of the neighbors to the east, to the south. So actually that stockade fence is on the south side of the street as it comes into the private lane. So there's already a very stark 6 foot, on a berm, 6-foot stockade fence there. But that's not where we're putting the fence. Our fence is going to be further north. But it's a unique area. And there's only one house. There's one house at the corner of Prospect and Crescent Court, and then there's another house on the west side of the street. You can see right there, 1840, and they've had no objections from either of those owners. Those are the people at the stockade fence, the 6-foot that abuts the lane, and then to the west is that one other house that's impacted, and they have no objection.
To address the issue of the hold harmless for a moment, I'm looking at the approval order, and I think we're referring to, you've taken a look at it, I think we're...
Patrick contacted me today and said they were adding that language. I haven't seen the language yet.
It appears to be paragraph F, where it's really not a hold harmless. What it is saying that the city nor the board is not accepting or assuming any liability for any violation of the easements, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah,
So
it's my understanding it was more of like an indemnification that the city was requesting. That's how Patrick explained it to me, not really as like a hold harmless. I don't think that was properly represented. It's more of a indemnification that there's any issues with the right-of-way because they put a gate along it, that the city, the city has no liability. And that's fine with the applicant. That was our intent anyway.
Any further questions from Mr. Bernstein?
Go ahead. You're first.
You first. You're close.
Madam Chair, 2 questions.
Yes.
The example of those other homes in the neighborhood, are those single homes that the fence
Yes,
is to the benefit of?
that's a
This is-
single- yes.
This is different, though, because this is for the benefit of,
Well, this is different two ways. Number one, those homes, the fence is actually in the parkway or along the street, so it's actually more visible than this property. And as I said, I'm unaware of this ever coming in front of the city before. In fact, we had multiple meetings with city before we even brought the application, trying to figure out how do we make this happen, because it was kind of like we were trying to figure out what we knew what we wanted to do, but we didn't know how to do it, what the process is. So we had Zoom meetings with the city, and we kind of settled on the variance process and doing it this way because it's private property, and they classify that as the front yard, even though it's set back technically, I mean, it's really 150 feet or so from Prospect. So, but the city is treating it as a front yard, which is driving the zoning request.
right. And I guess the second question, kind of most importantly, why not 4 feet?
The security issue, because 4 feet, there's 4 feet, there's a 4-foot fence there, it's just the topography, it's easily to jump over, it's easy, it's what they're really trying, the reason why they're doing this is they want the security, and it's the 4 homeowners that are impacted on the private lane have had issues, and it's issues with people who shouldn't be on the street and people who are accessing, they just feel safer with the extra 2 feet, and since we feel that it addresses the standards, we think that that's why we're pursuing the 6 feet.
Rebecca, do you have a question?
I mean, this doesn't really, it applies if it's a 4-foot fence or a 6-foot fence, but who's responsible for the maintenance?
It's actually interesting. They're going to, right now,
Are they going to create an HOA or something?
yes, we are. We're going to be
Oh, okay.
creating an HOA. That's the next step, assuming it gets approval. I mean, actually, there's one house that's under construction, and they kind of, once that house is completed, the idea was to do an HOA, not only, because right now it's a handshake, and how they deal with snow removal, maintenance of the street, and the fence, and this. And so the idea is that the agreement, and I met with them, is to create an HOA. I know it's a lot, it's cumbersome, but that's just for successor owners, because everyone gets along so well right now that they want to make sure that.
Right,
that
but
it's.
what happens with, the person who controls the gate and doesn't like the person
Yeah,
down
so
the street?
that's
also
all
they
going to be
can't
done
get
in an HOA, that's,
Okay.
and then that's the residents of, there's actually a draft document's been circulated, and just, we're waiting for this.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Vice Chair Yama.
Kind of to follow up more with the 4-foot fence and why not 4-foot fence and then bushes or, arborvitae or something that gives you vegetation, safety, and you can have like little spikes on your fence or, whatever to make it hard to hop, and someone couldn't get their car through that anyway, so.
Well, again, it's looking at the standards. We believe that the standards are met. From a safety perspective, this is actually a very meandering street. It's like kind of like the house kind of juts out a little bit, and trying to landscape. If you go back to the overall, like for example, Alex's house, right there, like his driveway is right there. That's where his front driveway is, and it juts out and further to the north. I mean, that's, the houses are, at least Alex's house especially, is pretty close to the street. And if you try, he's got a landscape, but that's where his driveway is. If you try to over landscape that, it's going to make his house invisible from the lane. It's also to create issues with his driveway that's already existing. So when we looked at the standards and the fact of the matter is that there's a 6-foot stockade fence right across the street, it's clear that asking for a 6-foot fence will not alter the character of the neighborhood, the buildings, or the existing homes, and the character of the neighborhood. That's really the standard. It's not really, it's whether it's going to alter it. We have a 6-foot, and this is not even going to be a stockade fence. There's a 6-foot stockade fence right across the street, and we're just, the security is really driving. Again, there's been issues there, and we don't believe the 4-foot fence would be sufficient. At least the owners don't believe it.
In short, is a 6-foot fence going to blend better with the surroundings than a 4-foot fence would in this circumstance?
Yes. And that's what the standard is.
Chair Van.
Please.
Does your client own the property on both sides of Crescent then?
It is, will you put up the survey, do you have the survey? It's, yes. You kind of see that that's the easement, and where the fence is going, that's his property.
Okay, so Crescent goes down, he owns both sides of Crescent,
In
more
that
or less.
location, yes, and there's an easement, so there's actually a neighbor who's building a brand-new home to the east, right along the lake, and that neighbor has to access, you see right there, they're accessing their driveway through the easement, through his property.
Okay. That's,
What page is that on in the packet? Good question. I found it. 11.
Any other questions for Mr. Bernstein?
Got just one. Are there other fences of the houses that are, I guess the issue is the character. That's one of the standards. Are there other fences other than the 6-foot stockade fence in this area?
Yes, Alex has a 4-foot fence in his front yard along his house. And that's, if you take a left from there, there's a 4-foot fence. I don't know, are there any other fences there? I don't remember seeing any.
There are not.
No, I think just,
The house to the east, however, is going to be.
All right, Cal's just going
okay,
to testify with that.
okay, there's the house to the east, which is under construction. My understanding, there's going to be, there's going to be a fence there, which it's not there right now. I don't know what the height of it, because I don't know if it's been proposed or approved yet. But Alex has a 4-foot fence along his driveway. But again, this is more to try to, create a buffer. And that's what the whole idea here is.
So is that going to remain the 4-foot, or are you
Yes.
replacing 6-foot?
Yes, the 4-foot fence goes on his property line. This is going across the private lane and the south part of his property. That's the idea. Actually, it's the middle of your property, right? It's really from the middle of his property, just across the lane where it's the private lane.
The 6-foot fence will be like kind of to that fence that's slightly to the south.
Yeah. See, it's right there. See, right.
Cal, I think we should bring Cal. Cal, excuse me. Cal, can we bring the applicant up and have him be sworn in since he's testifying?
No, I'll testify. Okay, so right here, see the driveway right there? You can see part of the 4-foot fence right there. Like kind of right there. There's a 4-foot fence that kind of borders his driveway, right there. But that's just kind of, this is really for the whole block, not for his property, so to speak. This is for the other homes. And that's the purpose of doing the 6-foot fence right there. That's
okay, and the 6, how far does the 6-foot fence go on is it just the length of that yellow block, or is it? Okay, it's just between the posts. Okay.
Yeah, that's all that was submitted.
So won't that look silly to connect a 4-foot fence to a 6-foot gate?
Actually, if you look on Hazel, there's exactly how it is on Hazel. There's a 4-foot fence, and then it's attached to a 6-foot fence. So it happens actually common. It's actually common when people go, there's been variances granted for 6-foot fences in the past, on, especially if you go by Ridge, by Heller, about that area by Heller. That's like 1 acre zoning up there, and there's some large estates, and they have 4-foot fences attached to a 6-foot. And usually those variance requests are about trying to make the columns wider, because under the city code, you can only do 12-inch columns, and they want wider columns with a higher fence. And kind of like what happened 53, I'm sure 53 Sycamore got a zoning variance for that, because that's a similar type of thing where it's more at the entrance of it. And so variance has been granted in the past for those type of things, but nothing like this where it's set 150 feet back from a street and where the neighbors are trying to create a more of a private lane, and it's more than one person. Usually it's just one. I've only seen one individual, never seen 4 neighbors seeking the same thing before.
So in essence, you're applying for a variance for a gate, even technically considered a fence, but
Yes.
all of the variance will apply to a
Yes.
swinging gate.
Yes.
That kind of negates your whole concept of the increased security of a 6-foot fence if it ties into a 4-foot fence.
Well, yes, it doesn't really do that. It's if you can go to the plan, it's the proposed location of the gate. Again, this is actually, if you go down there, there's a house that's heavily wooded here. It's really the issue that they're having is the opening right here, because this house is under construction to the east. So that's going to be changed. But if you go to this area, it's heavily wooded and it's not, you can't access it. There's grade changes, there's ravines there, so it's not easily accessible. What they've found is the problem is their people are going down the lane, and that was the purpose of the 6-foot fence on the lane, is trying to do that. But again, I'm going back to the standards, and the standards mention a favorable environment, suitable, compatible to the neighborhood. There's a 6-foot fence right across the street. It meets the standards.
Then you don't even need to make the security argument.
Well, you want to know why they're doing it, but that's part of it.
It's moving.
But again, looking at the standards, again, that's what we're seeking.
I get the concept, I understand it, it's just, the argument was unnecessary.
Please.
My question really is to discuss the standards a little bit more, and it will contribute to the favorable environment of the city. How is a 6-foot fence favorable to the city? Not to the neighbors, because I understand safety and all and the like, but how is it a favorable environment for the city?
Number one, it's on private property. Number two, it's set back 150 feet from really the city, this prospect. There's nobody else going down this street. So it's really the favorable environment for the city and suitable, compatible with the character of the neighborhood. So it's really both.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, suitable with the city. I mean, I know that this board's granted fence variances along arterial streets in the past and things like that. I mean, it's, you can make an argument that that's not suitable for the city to have a fence, a 6-foot fence on an arterial street in a front yard, but variances like that have been granted in the past. The favorable environment is really, for the city, it's focused on this block and these 4 neighbors who are seeking this. This is not a one-off. These are 4 neighbors who've gotten together, and this is what they're asking for. And I think, again, it's rare that you get people to agree like that. And this is something that they've been talking about for months now. We finally figured out a process to try to get them what they want. And that's what, that's why we're here. I mean, we're trying, this is what those neighbors request, and we believe that the standards support this because of the character of the neighborhood.
Any further questions? Seeing none, is there anyone else here who would like to speak
Thank you.
about this variance request? Seeing nobody, at this point, we will poll the members of the board. We will start with Member Chase.
Are we discussing or voting?
We're not voting, you're giving your opinions thus far.
I'm still, I also have a question of how this contributes to the favorable environment of the city. And I'm interested if any of the other board, any of the commission members have an answer, because I'm not sure I know that it met that standard, or that part of number 1, or how much weight we need to give that, I guess.
If you want, I'll give a stab at giving you a reply right now to that.
Please.
As
From-
will I.
I'm sorry?
If the chair doesn't hit the point, I have a.
Oh, sure,
thought as
you'll
well.
get your turn as well, but I think we're used to looking at things in terms of the zoning variation requests and the zoning code, which requires standards that almost have an affirmative obligation for people to prove certain things or that there's a need. I think we're reading a little bit too much, at least into that. It's saying that it's suitable, contributes to favorable environment and suitable and compatible. You could look at it the other way, basically saying it's not unsuitable, it's not incompatible. And I think to apply the fence code that strictly is doing a disservice to what the intentions of the code are.
And I understand we're not talking about, they don't have to make a case for a hardship here. So
Right, just these
it's-
3 standards, as Mr. Bernstein addressed, are the only things that apply in this matter.
Okay, that was my question.
Yes, a comment to add?
Yeah, my understanding is part of the history of the fence height variance was that the city, unlike some neighboring communities, didn't want to create long pathways along streets where you had a lot of 6-foot fences and you basically were creating a tunnel, an open tunnel, but, you know, a walled street more or less with 6-foot fences. I don't think that's what's happening here, so I'll go to
That's very helpful.
the chair's concept of it's not unfavorable to the city.
That's very helpful, thank you.
But I also think there's reasons why city planners wouldn't want 6-foot fences in front yards
Right.
throughout town, right?
Correct.
Just in general. So,
Yep. Okay. All right. Member Chase, are you done opining
Yes,
at this point?
yes,
Okay.
thank
We'll
you.
go down the line to Member Zaransky. I'm sorry, Member Trushansky. This is going to happen
I'm
forever.
glad to know I'm not the only one.
Can you guys change names, you know?
I was here first.
So as I understand it, if the plan was to construct a 4-foot fence or gate, however you want to call it, we wouldn't be here. And the reason for the extra 2 feet is for safety reasons, which I'm sensitive to. And so I think the standards have been met, and I would be in favor of voting for it.
Now to do a quick pivot, we'll go to Member Zaransky.
Okay, thank you. Look, I think the goal that is trying to be achieved here can be achieved with a 4-foot fence. And frankly, I don't see the standards being met. I think almost all 3 of them are having difficulty being met. And unless I hear something compelling to change my mind, I will not be in support of this variance.
Thank you. Member Beck?
So as I look through them, I mean, I don't see anything in here that would prevent me from saying that they don't meet these standards. I mean, favorable environment is very arguable. Character of the neighborhood, I mean, you're trying to create an exclusivity. If that's what the neighbors want, I guess that's what they get. It's not going to be detrimental to the
I'm
growth
sorry
of
to
the city.
interrupt. Do you mind speaking to the mic a little bit more?
I do, because I don't want anyone to know what I said. And it will definitely not cause a depreciation of the property values. I think if you have this gated community, it's going to look, you know, it's not going to depreciate it. I agree with Member Zaransky, they could do this with a 4-foot fence, but I don't see anything in here that prevents me from voting for it. So I guess by default, I have to vote for it because I can't find reason not to.
Thank you. Member Cullither?
I'm going to agree with Member Beck in that I really wish this were being done with a 4-foot fence, but I don't, just because I feel that in our front yard, I prefer a 4-foot fence versus a 6-foot. On the other hand, I will agree with Member Beck as well as the applicant's attorney that the standards have been met. As has been mentioned, I would be concerned about, and I hope as you create the HOA, you look at things like FedEx and UPS and the USPS, and, the folks who are going to need access to these 4 homes and get through that gate. I don't know the logistics of that. I suspect you don't want your packages and your mail and your Lake County tax bill dumped at the gate. But, that's something y'all need to consider. That's not anything before us. We can grant this and you don't get your Lake County tax bill because it was dumped at the gate. They were delivered today if you want to know the reference. That's not our fault. We're going to be held harmless on that sucker. This is all your fault. So I would vote in favor.
Vice Chair Gephardt?
I'm going to agree with Member Zaransky. I do not believe the standards have been met. I am reading it as a favorable environment of the city, and I understand, I do think it is suitable. It's the and is suitable and compatible with the character of the neighboring buildings. I think you've met the and. I don't believe you've met favorable environment of the city. I think based on what you've said today, I believe that a 4-foot fence would be sufficient. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Yeah, a thought occurred to me. I don't think the residents here would be doing this, except one of their major motivations is for security. And although Member Beck said it's not a relevant argument for purpose of whether it meets the standards or not, I think it's a reality. And I think they're entitled to have the security. I think looking at these standards from a slightly different perspective, I certainly don't think they're violating the standards. I don't think it's incompatible or unsuitable. And I would tend to grant the variance as well. So having said that, Cal, would you like me to call for a vote? Okay. I would entertain a motion.
Member Beck will move to approve the order as written,
Okay.
or with the should we say with the amendment that council?
It's already in there.
It's already in there, okay.
So as written.
As written.
Okay. Anyone second?
I'll second.
Okay. That's a motion by Member Beck to approve the variation approval order, and a second by Member Cullither. Patrick, can we get a roll call vote, please?
Yes. Member Chase?
I approve. So, yay, I guess.
Member Trushansky?
Aye.
Member Beck?
Aye.
Member Zaransky?
No.
Member Cullither?
Aye.
Vice Chair Yablon?
Nay.
And Chair Fay?
Aye. So, okay, motion passes 5-2. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Interject for 30
Sure, of course.
I just want to interject for 30 seconds, and that is that, just for the record, for the last meeting, when I screwed up, it was because I just approved a project without having a vote. So it's not that I was saying no to people, I said yes without the approval of
That's
the rest
okay.
of the board.
He assumed we have a quorum without a roll call of who was present.
Yeah, that's
So,
right.
you know, things happen.
Nobody's perfect, certainly not me, so. Okay, all right, we can move on now to the next item of new business, if I can get back to the agenda here, which is right in front of me. Okay, that's, second item of new business is variation dash VAR dash 2024-00017. Property is 35 Acorn Lane. The appellant is Rotem Zuberi. Am I doing good so far? Okay, 2 for 2. We have a presentation from staff, please.
Yes. Okay, so 35 Acorn Lane, variation 2024-17. Applicant Rotem Zuberi, property owner and applicant. The proposal is to construct an in-ground swimming pool that will encroach within the required total combined side yard. The property is zoned R4, which has a 20 square foot lot area minimum. The existing home was built in 1998, according to Lake County Assessor's Office. So the requested relief is to encroach into the required side yard setback of 22.5 feet by 8.5 feet along the northern property line for a total of 283 square feet. Here is just the zoning of the area, surrounded by R4 and R6 to the east. And then here is an aerial of the property. I will have you note, these two properties submitted letters of support. This property accesses their property through this driveway here. So the platted survey. What is interesting about this property is that it is wider than it is long. So typically on interior lots, usually you have a shorter frontage and then your lot is a little deeper. The opposite is true of this property. It fronts Acorn Lane here. It has a 160-foot wide lot and then 110 feet deep. So it has bigger side yards than it does rear yard. On the south, the side yard is 25.5, and on the north it is 22.5 feet, for a total area, or total distance of 48 feet of side yard. Here are some property photos. So the northern side yard is currently fenced in, so this is facing north currently. And then this is just another angle of the fence and trees, and on the right is the area where the proposed pool would be located. Okay, so the blue is the existing home, the yellow is the proposed pool, and the orange outline is the setbacks for the property. Currently how the pool is situated, it is 26 feet, or how it is proposed, it is 26 feet away from the existing structure, and it is encroaching 8.5 feet into that 22.5 foot side yard setback. The pool dimensions are 40 feet by 15.83 feet, and yeah, the total, again, square foot encroachment is 283 square feet. So we received no other additional comments from city staff, but we did receive 2 letters of support from those 2 adjacent neighbors, the one to the north and the one to the east. And we received nothing after the packet had been posted. So again, the requested relief is to encroach within the required side yard setback of 22.5 feet by 8.5 feet along the northern property line for a total area of 283 square feet. And then I asked the board to use Chapter 150 zoning code standards of approval. Thank you.
Patrick, we spoke earlier today, I understood that someone might have been coming to speak on this matter. They've chosen not to come?
Correct.
Okay. Any questions for staff? Seeing none, I'll ask if there's anyone here to speak on behalf of the variation. Both of you will be testifying?
Yes.
Okay. I'd ask both of you to state your names for the record, please.
Roten Tuberi.
And the other gentleman?
Anthony Russo.
Okay. And I will swear you both in if you'll raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay. Please proceed.
Good evening. First of all, English is not my first language, so excuse me.
Don't never apologize.
And I don't like to speak in front of a lot of people, so. Basically, we are looking for this variance because I think our situation is kind of unique because our side yard is basically our backyard. And that's why we're asking for a setback of a backyard, which is, I believe, 10 foot. The most important thing is for us that, to say here that it does not affect anything as far as the character of the neighborhoods. It doesn't affect any of the neighbors. It basically doesn't affect anybody. There's no trees. It doesn't affect any, interfere with light or plumbing or electrical or anything to anybody in the neighborhood. So it's really pretty much straightforward. That's basically it.
I'm basically here, I'm the pool contractor, and what Rodham said is 100% accurate. Patrick over here did a great job explaining what he's trying to accomplish, but if you guys had any technical questions or questions pertaining to the pool, I believe that one road to the, is that north, Patrick, if I'm not mistaken? That's a private road as well.
It only serves the property.
Yeah, this one property on the south side, that's, on the east side, that's their driveway, and then it serves an entry to the garage to the property on the north side. And both of them are okay with this variance. I mean, it doesn't affect them, so.
Just a question?
Sure.
Patrick, it says on there, it says private road, or is it
Yeah,
really a
so
driveway? Because then we
it's-
seem like we have 2 front yard setbacks.
Yes, it is a driveway. And originally, let's see. So this area was slated to be a private road that was going to cut through all the way to Ridge. That never happened. And the property, it's null. That's no longer private right of way. This property actually added 20 feet to their property, and the neighbor to the north added the other 20 feet. So all that is now is just a driveway. So it would just be like if a lot in depth was next to a property, we wouldn't count that as a frontage.
And then I have a question for the applicant. The primary criteria that we always come to is, where's the hardship?
The
So-
hardship for him is he has no backyard, because of the lot. And there would not be any swimming pool be able to, because I mean, typically you would put a swimming pool in your backyard. He doesn't have the distance to comply with any code in the backyard, and he has overhead electric in that back area. So, by standard, comment, you have to be a minimum of 10 feet away, and that would literally put the pool into his house.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Can I just follow up? I'm curious, so can the pool be, it can't be further south? Because I see it looks like there's a 26-foot
I can
distance.
answer that
Yes,
as well.
that's-
So the reason why it's set where it's at is those are doors leading from his house. For
Mm-hmm.
safety purposes, it's an elevated stoop. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's not truly 26 feet because you have to have a 3-foot stoop on the front end of that before you have to install a railing. So it reduces that distance. And the other thing, they just wanted to actually keep the pool a little bit further away for the simple fact that where it's gonna go is it would be completely blocked by the sun. When the sun goes ahead and goes up, he would have no sun in his swimming pool. And they have small children too, so they wanted the pool as far as they could possibly put it to the north.
Because they're going to jump off that balcony into the pool.
That, one day, yeah, that'll probably happen. Yeah.
My 3 kids were divers, so that's possible if it's deep enough.
Maybe we need to hold harmless on this.
You are aware, this is a question for either or both of you. You are aware of, in order for us to grant a variation, we are obligated to apply the standards for granting a variation, of which there are 7. Would you do us the courtesy of addressing these standards? Because we can't grant it unless we believe that they all have been met.
Sure. Sorry. Obviously, I know one of them is this proposed variation is in harmony with the spirit and intent of the zoning, zoning code. It will not alter any essential character of the neighborhood. This proposed variation will not impair or adequate supply of light and air to adjacent properties. It won't increase any congestion in the public streets. It won't increase danger of fire or endanger the public safety. This variation won't detrimental the public welfare or injurious to other properties or improvements. I think it meets almost most of them. This hardship was not created by any of us, of course, so should I keep going? I'm sorry.
Yeah, you know what, I'm going to jump ahead a little bit because I've been doing this a while, and I suspect that the ones that are going to be at issue that we perhaps should specifically address is the one that always seems to raise its head is the reasonable return standard. That's the first standard, and it's, you can read it, or, if you have it in front of you, or Patrick can provide a copy of you, but it's basically saying that the property cannot yield a reasonable return if permitted to be used only under the conditions. In other words, if we don't give you the variation, you won't be able to use it and get a reasonable return. So how would you address that?
Do you
Can I
mind?
just expand on that a little bit? We've been told that reasonable return does not necessarily mean monetary. So keep that in mind with your answer.
And Mr. Zuber, I mean this with the greatest of respect. Perhaps part of this is because English is not your first language, And even though we certainly don't expect you to apologize for that, that there might be a little bit difficulty understanding what we're asking you, what I'm asking you. And if that's the case, we can try and
It is, yeah, I'm sorry.
make it clear. Yeah, no problem. I kind of picked up on that. Sure. Vice Chair Yevlin has something she'd like to say.
So, for example, can you walk us through why the 26 feet? Because it could certainly be pulled closer to the house, or at least it seems that way. Why not pull it closer to the house?
So for us, the main thing is safety. I mean, obviously, the further the pool is away from our doors, or I should say from the house, gives us some more, time to attend to whatever, needs to be attended to. And like I said, another thing is, because of the house, the way it is, if we get the pool further closer to the fence, we will be able to get a little bit more sun too.
So even if you were to move it, say, I'm just picking kind of random numbers, and the contractor can answer this as well, even if you remove this 2 feet closer to the house, where you'd have 24 feet between the house and the pool,
That would be okay too.
I think-
Not 22 and a half though.
If I could chime in, I think the biggest thing is they wanted to keep it as far. They're willing to move it in more, like the suggestion you just had. I just think that the 8.5 feet would start getting too close, especially with that balcony off the top of that bedroom.
What about the size of the pool itself? Is it kind of a regulation size?
Well, the issue is they selected a fiberglass in-ground swimming pool, so they only make them in certain widths. They're predetermined. It's not a custom-made like a concrete or a vinyl landing ground pool. They selected this particular model because it has a ledge area where the children could play, because they have small kids. And the next size down, if I'm not mistaken, I'm gonna do this off the top of my head, they would sacrifice 10 feet of area on the length and 3 feet on the width, so the pool starts becoming smaller and smaller and smaller.
And there wouldn't be a ledge in that model either for the kids, or would there?
I'm sorry, can you repeat
I
that
said,
one more time?
would there be a ledge in this smaller model for the kids? Because you mentioned.
Well,
a
the
ledge.
pool would end up taking up 10 feet, that ledge would end up taking 10 feet of that pool, so instead of having 30 feet of swimmable area or 30 feet of swimmable area, now they're gonna be left with 20.
And you said the pool is 15 feet wide? What?
15 foot 10, which is truly 14 foot 10 because it's a fiberglass pool.
Right, so if you deduct 3 feet, this is a pretty narrow pool. I mean,
Exactly
no one
right.
wants that.
Right, and I mean, here, they're making this investment to create this backyard for their family. They don't want to keep shrinking this down to where it doesn't make sense for them.
What's the closest to the house you could get it and still feel comfortable? This is really more for Mr. Zuber. He'd still feel comfortable proceeding.
So I believe, I think right now we're showing 12 foot, I can't tell, oh, yeah, 12 foot, I think like you said, I mean, we'll be okay with compromising even with 14. I just think the 22 and a half is really, really close to the house.
Roy, I think what he's asking you
Oh,
though is
sorry.
currently you're 26 feet away. He's asking you, what would you be willing? Would it be 24 feet away from the house? 20 feet?
22,
24,
23,
Yeah.
24 is as close as you'd want to bring it.
24 probably. Sorry again.
No problem whatsoever. Okay. Any other questions?
I guess just to build the record a little bit further, so we were talking about the reasonable return. To me, it seems that your hardship is you have no backyard. So you want a pool, you want to enjoy your new property, and for you to do so, you want to have a swimming pool. And to spend all this money and not have a sunshine in your pool would kind of be pretty detrimental. So it seems to me like really the placement of the pool is driven by sunlight, and that kind of gives you the reasonable return.
Well, for us, it's first it's safety, I'm sorry. And then, of course, the sun will be also part of it too.
Right. That wasn't really a question, was it?
Trying to help.
It was a helpful question.
Yes.
All right. Anything else? Seeing nothing, we will begin to poll the members, and we will start this time with Member Beck.
So I think there's a hardship, especially, given the lot, the way it's configured. I agree with Member Zaransky about the reasonable return. You want to have a nice yard. The other standards, I think, are met. I don't think, saying we're going to ask you to move it in 2 feet, I mean, the arguments are still the same, whether it's 2 feet or 8 feet encroachment. So that's really a non-issue to me, so I would be in favor of granting the variance.
Thank you. Members are asking.
I agree. I think the standards are certainly met. I think I too am fine with the placement of it being where it is. I don't think it's necessary to move it closer to the house. And I'm supportive of the application as submitted.
Member Culver.
I would agree with my two colleagues. I actually have had the privilege of owning a house with a pool in the side yard. And I understand that it can be very difficult in order from placement. But what I would remind my colleagues is we're not adding bulk. As far as it isn't like he's encroaching to put a 1 or 2 story building within this. You're doing it at ground level, so it isn't like there's height bulk being added, as far as, and there'll be a fence there anyway. So it isn't like that will affect. So I agree with my colleagues that, I think the ability to enjoy their property, is part of the reasonable return. I believe that, certainly if they made it smaller, there'd be, there becomes not only the use, but the reasonableness of, a pool of the size that their contractor has indicated would end up being. I'm fine with it where it's located. The pool I had was probably closer to the property line than that, if I'm looking at it and remembering correctly, without a measuring tape. So I would be, and I will note that house was in a different jurisdiction. So, and fortunately I didn't have to build it. I just had to replace the heater. So I would approve this ordinance.
Thank you. Member Trushansky. Ordinance.
Gunning for city council.
I don't really have anything else to add that everyone's already said, so I think the standards have been met, and I would vote in favor of it.
Member Chase.
I too think the standards have been met. I appreciated the explanation about why it has to be where it is, which is causing them to have the variance.
Vice Chair, yeah.
I too believe the standards that have been met, and in terms of, from a safety perspective, being a mother of young kids a while ago, it is good to have a little bit of a buffer to grab them. And also now having a kid who's a long jumper, having it be farther away from the house in that balcony is also a good choice. I would be in favor of this.
Thank you. I'm actually a little bit on the fence as one of the longest standing members of the zoning board. I know that we have to be certain that all the standards have been met. I think we're kind of interpreting the reasonable return standard in the most favorable manner to your benefit. But I can get there, right? Especially if you have a house and you have young children and you envisioned having a place for them to play and having a pool, that I think that's a reasonable expectation to be able to have. And since certainly the hardships have been met as far as not having a backyard. So just having mentioned that, I would say that I would also support the granting of the variance. So having said that, would you like us to take a vote?
Yes, please.
Okay, I will entertain a motion at this point.
I'll move that we adopt the variance as drafted.
A second?
I'll second.
Okay, that's a motion by Member Cullither to grant the variation and adopt the approval order as drafted, seconded by Member Trushansky. Patrick, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes. Member Chase.
Aye.
Member Trushansky.
Aye.
Member Beck.
Aye.
Member Zaransky.
Aye.
Member Cullither.
Aye.
Vice Chair Yablon.
Aye.
And Chair May.
Aye. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Yes,
I appreciate it.
Is he gonna be able to enjoy it this summer?
We can all come enjoy it with us now.
Well, I can't say
No,
that.
no,
I just
we
want
can't
to
do
make
that.
sure that
You know,
he pays
he's
for it.
under oath right now.
You can send the invitations through Patrick, he knows how to reach all of us.
Seems to be like a kickback, we can't do that.
We
have to show up and
we can't, if we don't talk about our own zoning board business, we can't, so, okay. All right,
So is
moving
there
moving
anything we
along
can
here.
do about that reasonable return clause? Because it is so undefined.
I think council likes it.
Yeah.
And lawyers love things that aren't defined because it lets them define it.
Exactly.
I think until it's been more strictly defined, I would take the view that we should be as liberal as possible, as, you know.
Well, you were close to, you know.
Well,
going over the dark
I'm also
side.
hoping, as you are, that it might be more,
We'll
it might be
vote
more
it out.
specific, but, you know, maybe we'll get there at some point, probably after my tenure, so.
Kind of speaking on that, Corporation Council has gotten back to me about rescheduling training, which could be a great time to ask that question. Currently, it's August 1st or 15th. I believe we're leaning towards 1st, so put that on the calendars.
Okay. Yeah, please. Vice Chair.
To me, that doesn't sound so feasible in terms of, like, that's the last week or, 2 weeks before school starts, that's traditionally,
It's a big vacation.
Tough attendance time, yeah.
yeah.
Is there a reason why Corporation Council kicked it so far down the road?
Well, I think it's one that we have other councils or boards that are doing training. So I think we were one of the earlier ones, and tailing end is just other meetings are being filled, and I don't know, I'm not sure. I don't know their
Why
schedule.
was the training canceled? It was supposed to be 2 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, whatever.
2 weeks ago, yeah.
Okay. Did the case get,
We didn't have a quorum.
oh, there wasn't a quorum. Well, I was trying to find out why there wasn't a meeting. I
Got
didn't.
canceled from no quorum?
It got canceled for no quorum, or it got canceled because
Yeah.
somebody moved their case?
No,
That's-
we didn't have a quorum.
Okay, thank you.
Did you mention that in the email?
Yes.
I believe I did.
I don't think it said there was no quorum. I think it just
Just
said
said
it was canceled.
I think it just said it was canceled.
Sorry.
It's possible that it was because they were aware, and I think it was Cal Bernstein who was aware that there were only 4 people, and I think it may have been this Crescent Court case that.
Yes, it
Crescent
was.
Circle we heard today.
There was just
They kicked
maybes,
it,
and it
so-
ended up becoming a no, and so it was just no quorum, and then that's why it got pushed to this meeting. And then, yes, the Corporation Council would like a rather full board to train instead
Okay.
of,
Do you know, Patrick, if we have any other options of either making it, I'm assuming they're not going to have time to schedule it in May, we're already in May, and I'm assuming June and July are not that much better than August as far as the time to schedule it, so we're looking at maybe sometime in September, pushing it further rather than have it interfere with the people's
I
summer
can
plans.
ask about pushing it further.
Would that be better for everyone?
Can we do it with another group, or it has to be?
That has been floated, but the issue is.
It would double the time, bro.
And I think it is specific to us.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, each,
Understood.
like if we did it with HBC, they don't have the same standards, and I think people would end up taking some things away from other commissions that they shouldn't actually be taking away from, so it was kind of decided that they need to be separate, so it doesn't kind of cause confusion.
So again, it would be better for everyone on the board, for the most part, in either September or later, sometime after August.
Or the third Thursday in August versus the first.
15th.
Either late August as opposed to early August or beyond.
Alternative chair, maybe the board could be flexible with like time, maybe come an hour earlier than the meeting starts, like a 6:30 start. Is that?
That,
I'm willing to do whatever works for the board, so it's really, we need to discuss it as far as what
I'm just.
what our
it's just an
preferences
option. I
are.
don't know if it's, you know.
yeah, I don't know if that's an option. I don't know if we actually have to have an open meeting I don't think we have to have an open meeting for the training. That's just, I don't know that knowledge, but I can ask about that.
Why don't you find out from
All
Corporation
you have to
Council?
do then is notice it.
Yeah, but our rules and procedures say that we have to start at 7:30, which would require us adopting new rules and procedures to start earlier, I believe. But I will jot that note down and ask.
The training has to be a meeting? So.
That's what I'm not sure
Because
of.
if we don't call it a
We adjourned the
meeting,
meeting before we started it
Yeah.
last time.
Yeah, we adjourned.
Yeah, we're not doing any official business, the zoning board
Right,
business.
But we're meeting in a,
We're in a group
we're in a
setting,
group setting,
Right, so
so,
it has to be noticed.
yes.
so we could be doing, who knows what, okay.
Yeah.
We have to.
And
All right,
if
if
you
you-
wait
maybe-
till January, I don't have to go through it.
Let's do New Year's Eve,
I'll be
yeah.
done, I'll be at the end of my 8 full years. 8 full years.
All right, if you'll just find out what our options are, Patrick, we'd appreciate it, and let us know. And
So August 15th is probably better if I'm last resort, I guess, versus the 1st.
I mean,
I think September's going to be a better option.
Yeah, I'm trying to give them options as well.
Yeah. Are we, so the 5th, yeah, given the choice between the 1st and the 15th is better? They're both Thursdays, obviously, we're literally August 1st.
I think either of them would be fine. Being an empty nester, it doesn't.
Yeah, I was kind of addressing it more to those that had raised issues.
there's no Jewish holiday conflicts in those
No,
days.
not
They're
until,
late this year.
until September, October.
October. Oh, jeez.
I'll have a discussion with the director and corporation council and try and get some more options.
Maybe you can, if you
Rosh
need to,
Hashanah,
circulate an email and yeah, just
Yes.
everyone can reply to you or whatever.
Yeah, we'll figure that out.
Okay. All right, moving on from that, from right now, that was kind of in the nature of a staff report. Is there anything else in the nature of a staff report?
No, that's it.
Okay. Any miscellaneous? I was going to get to that, yeah. No miscellaneous? Okay. Anything from the city council? Councilman, Russ?
No, I have, it's interesting, I've been debating in my head whether I can, it's after you've already voted, and whether I can ask, a question about, I guess I'll try to be very, very careful. Still, I guess I have a question about, I'll just, since you've already voted, right? So I can pretty much ask any question? I'm not sure.
Sure. I think so.
Is that correct?
Is it? We'll stop you if you're
You'll
going
stop me.
somewhere dangerous,
You
but
could
I.
adjourn the meeting and then you could ask your question.
No. You
No,
absolutely
well,
can't do that.
no, you can ask it of one or two of us, but not,
The question is, about, and I mean, I guess it's answered in my head, because you go by the standards and you follow those standards quite well, for, honestly, the cases I've seen, the applicants I've seen. And so I know it's not part of the standards, but, and I do appreciate that it was a hardship with the pool, but, I don't know how one might deal with sort of steering the applicant toward, there's a lot of impermeable surface that, as a result, from the design, there's a pool and there's the patio itself around it. And it's just a question about, I don't know, that wouldn't be where that would fall.
I think I can take it. I think we kind of assume if it's not raised as an issue by the building department, because anything
Sure.
built is going to be.
That's a good answer.
Yeah, they're gonna have to get a permit, and that's for engineering, and for
Yeah.
the building department to go out, and if there's extra drainage, if they're gonna have to put a storm drain there, and tie it into the storm sewer,
Right.
whatever it may be, then hopefully that's the building department's job, because it's
Sure.
way above our pay grade
Yeah.
to get into that.
And I just didn't know where that would fall. And again, please give me a little
Of course, no, sure.
leeway here, because I haven't been doing this very long.
I think there's some kind of ratio for like lot coverage or something based on impervious versus pervious.
Yeah,
And I guess some of the building department probably do that calculation on,
sure.
making
I mean,
that
there are ways to deal with the drainage.
Right.
It's just, it's a lot of runoff,
Right.
potentially, and and what that means in a bigger sense, but I couldn't, in my mind's eye, figure out whether that's something we can regulate in the future.
Pools don't contribute to the FAR, correct?
No,
No.
it's not still like.
Right, but yeah, but like I said, that's a different
Speak
department.
freely.
Okay, I've been raising my hand. I don't know exactly, but I do know that there have been cases brought before us where part of the variance that's needed is because they have gone over their allotted permeable
I can
and
touch on this
impermeable.
if you would like. So, in the required rear yard, you can only cover 30% of that area. Generally, people put pools in their rear yard, and that's where those kinds of variations come into play. With your concern, so say they put the pool next to their house, they still, by zoning, could put the patio where the pool was. Like, they still could cover as much as
Right.
that area as they wanted to. Technically, you can cover 100% of your buildable area if you would like to. Pool like just patio space that's at grade can go 2 feet to any property line. So,
Yeah.
the coverage is correct.
There's
building.
nothing really regulating.
Zoning,
that.
no, the
Yeah.
only coverage rules are in the rear yard, and then building will do drainage and grading reviews,
Right.
having them tie into sewer. The more coverage, the greater scrutiny.
Yeah, and I would think the building department would be aware of cases where there might be, just because of the elevation, because of the grading, whatever it may be, that the drainage would be an issue, and hopefully they would make whatever permits to be issued
Sure.
contingent upon dealing with the drainage properly.
It's an environmental question I have in my mind, but in any event, I thank you for entertaining my question. I feel like everything, honestly, all the way you handled everything seemed very appropriate.
I think it's also somewhat reassuring too that I feel like since Highland Park is so old and there's so many lots that are so poorly graded, that a lot of times when we have one of these, like a pool, for example, which is, civil engineered and done with building permits, that it ends up getting improved also too. A lot
True.
of the deficits seem to
True.
kind of,
I mean,
end up better,
yeah.
But it's just, I guess, my own reassurance in my mind, but whether that's the case or not, I don't know. But
And that's very true. I mean, thank you again for entertaining my question.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, I think that brings us to adjournment, so I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Member Beck, second.
Motion adjourned by Member Coulter, seconded by Member Beck. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.